and welcome back to the Redhedge Podcast. Today I'm here with Maheta Molango, the Chief Executive of the Professional Football Players Association. How are you, Maheta?
Very good, thank you.
Thank you for finding the time to come here and participate to the podcast, first of all.
Thank you for having me.
So why don't we start to talk about you? And I love your story, your experience. That's what we want to dig a bit, especially your professional pattern. Most of you will know Maheta as a football player, but what happened next? And tell us about you.
A lot of things happened. I grew up in a very small village in Switzerland, and I was actually playing football as an amateur, really, because I come from a family where, I've got a very disciplined African father, where being a football player is not a source of pride in my family. So they tell you being an engineer, being a doctor, being an architect, but being a player as such was not something that was an aspiration in my family. So studying was always the main focus until sometimes destiny is what it is, and I got the chance to go for a trial to Atletico Madrid. So you go from being a small village in Switzerland, to all of a sudden being an amateur paying to play, to all of a sudden, with 18 moving to Madrid, moving to a completely different city, a completely different challenge, a different type of environment. Talking about what we discussed offline in terms of, football is a nice place from the outside, but it's a very competitive place. But so is banking, and so is law. So any environment where there is an opportunity to grow financially and in terms of your visibility attracts people who are very competitive. And I discovered this very nice city, but equally a very aggressive and competitive environment in Madrid. And I had the chance to play for different clubs in different countries, including here in England. And then since I studied whilst I was playing, I did a law and I did a law degree and a political science degree. Then at some stage in my life, I had the chance to have a plan B that probably was as good as my plan A, and I felt maybe it was time to explore something different. And I was lucky enough to be hired by Baker McKenzie, the American law firm in Madrid, because that's where I did my law studies, and that's where I started my new career, if you wish, of the playing field, which then evolved into then entering to club management and more recently here in England, heading the association which represent all the professional players, male and female in England.
Which I almost simplify is like a union of the football players. What you're doing right now is it correct?
I mean, we've had a lot of conversations to what we are, and as I said to you, I'm a lawyer by trade. If today I call my union and I'm no longer an active professional, would they give me anything? Maybe not even a pen. And I think what makes us different is that I think we're much more than a union, in the sense of, first of all, we represent both male and female athletes, which is not forcibly common in our space. Weirdly, I don't see a reason why it wouldn't be the same, but it's not normally the same. And second, we represent not just the 5,000 people who currently play, so in the Premier League, Championship, League One, League Two, and Women's Super League, but we also represent 50,000 former members. That goes from Alan Shearer to Gianfranco Zola to myself.
Mm-hmm. Anyone that's been in the Premier League is represented by
everyone that has played professional football in this country, in England, for 1 minute is a member of the PFA and forever stays a member of the PFA.
That is
which means that ultimately, you can access us for educational grants, even if you no longer play. You can access for medical grants. You can study as part of the PFA Business School. You can go to our brand new PFA Reconnect Center, which are health center that you can access to keep kind of mentally and physically fit. So it's it's a very well-resourced organization, which in theory we're a union, but I think we probably see ourselves more as a players association, because it's a very relevant and influential institution as well from a political perspective in this country. We actually have a veto rights on basically anything that affects the players. That goes from a salary cap potentially to the calendar, etc. So to be honest with you, I'm not sure I would have had an interest in working in any other union that wasn't this one, because of what it represents, because of the resources that we have, and because of the reach that the PFA has.
No, it is a very fascinating story, and definitely it's difficult to define because we don't have it in any other sector almost. This kind of support that you give to the current and former player and future player of the Premier League. And focusing on this, we discussed online briefly, and our listeners knows about our involvement into the rowing, in the rowing sport overall, and our support into the rowers which struggle to have a professional career, and with us and with other of our partners we do internship and work experience through their sport life, because I strongly believe that a sport person has a discipline and learn soft skills which are very important for any job, for any type of job, especially these when you are investing or have relationship with clients, investors, and so on. Having a strong discipline, have commitment, and follow rules and indication is something that any sport, I personally believe, will teach you. And so, discussing offline again, a big commitment of the association it is to give extra access to the players. A lot of people, I guess, they don't make it through the big salaries that we are used to imagine football players having on average, and a lot of them will probably need education for what is their brand eventually in the most successful cases, but actual education. If what would the plan A, as you said before, doesn't work, what would they actually do for this? What do you have?
I think you're absolutely spot on. I think that's a very smart way of looking at this. Think about the fact that nowadays I think in the age of artificial intelligence, I think the knowledge is out there. So gone are the days where it was a question of since when I studied, or maybe when you studied, where it was a question of being very good at memorizing and turning up at exam and being very good at that. I think now people hire based on something different, and I think what used to be soft skills have become core skills.
I agree.
It is a question of how you persuade people. It's a question of how you present yourself. It's a question about how you work in teams, how resilient you are. And think about the fact that I know that people only see the nice thing about players, but the reality is that those guys are in reality crisis managers. So typically the ones who make it to the top are the ones who have been better at handling the crisis that they face during their career, because it's a highly competitive environment. You're only 1 week away from losing again. So the question is, how do you manage losing, how you manage winning, how you work as a team, how you are resilient, how you deal with pressure. It's a highly pressurized environment where you need to make decisions sometimes intuitively, sometimes under, So I think you're absolutely spot on. That's what we try to convince the players about, because sometimes weirdly enough, they're very confident on the pitch, but sometimes they can feel a bit, daunted to deal with people who may have like higher level of study than them. And I spend a lot of time telling them that one of the things that I learned when I went to Baker McKenzie was that I had learned stuff intuitively that I wasn't really kind of aware that it had a real value. I remember, vividly some of my colleagues at the time, kind of coming back after a discussion with a partner, crying, and I'm thinking, wow, then what would you do if you were playing in front of 30,000 people or 40,000 people, you miss a penalty and everyone, the least they say to you is,
What you don't want to hear. Absolutely. It's much worse than a partner
how would you
discussion.
then deal with the pressure of the press so sports is a very unfair environment, and collective sport even more so, because ultimately in your job, typically when you grow, you reach a certain point, you only move laterally. So in my field as a lawyer, you grow, you become a partner, you never go back to be an intern. You become a partner elsewhere, you become in-house counsel. In football, you can be the partner.
And then move down.
Tomorrow there's someone younger, smarter, better scoring goals, and you become the intern in the sense, literally. They take away your number, they make you change a different dressing room, you're completely set aside, and it's a very difficult thing to manage mentally, yet the players do that almost naturally. So I think you've spotted a very interesting opportunity. I think that athletes are an interesting species that I think could apply their skills very well in banking, in investment, in law, in any pressurized, high-result environment. That's where they thrive. That's what they're good at,
I never looked at the angle because I've been interfacing more with lower tiering type of sport, in more less followed sport. Football is the people, the amount of people that watch you is the extra layer of pressure. It's not just yourself.
Correct.
It's not just your manager, and the whole support gives another layer compared to other sports, which is the magnitude is huge. It's like an Olympic day for a rower every Sunday, every Saturday.
It's different. I think I admire a lot of people who do individual sports because you're on your own. So in football, if I miss a pass, I've got someone. I mean, the closer is the goalkeeper. Because if he or she makes a mistake, it's a goal. There is no second chance. Whereas normally in the rest of the pitch, if you have a bad day, someone else can kind of supply that or make up for it. So, individual sports are, it's tough mentally. You depend on yourself. It's only you yourself, and your ability to withstand the challenges. So, I mean, sports is, that's why I'm really keen for my kids to play sport, whatever sport they do, because it's a school of life also, and you also face all type of people. I remember when I was playing in Switzerland, sometimes it's an awakening call to go to training and see a guy who's coming back from work. He's 19 and he works in the garage or whatever, and he comes there. He's got his hands dirty. He's tired, physically tired, and you come from your school and you think you're tired, but you're not. That guy...
It's a reality check.
Absolutely. And he puts things into perspective. And, every year you change the dressing room. So you've got this natural ability to adapt to the environment, to make new friends, to regain the trust of people. That's constantly evolving, And I think a lot of those skills are stuff that are super helpful in your day-to-day in other walks of life.
I agree. New environment, adaptation, be in touch with different words, the segregation of schools, a certain the society leads to kind of go out with the same type of peers, expose you with the real world sometimes.
And judgment calls.
Absolutely. Maybe going into the younger generation info, because in other sports, again referring to rowing, it is utilized a lot as a leverage for scholarship, and a lot of sports which are less popular makes you access better university, and a lot of younger athletes, you will use this as a scholarship methodology for sports. Now, football could be for some university as well, but definitely if you are a good footballer, you want to be a professional and follow your dream as a proper career. But what is the pattern now? Younger kids are thinking about their education, are thinking about if they don't make the plan B, what do you think compared when you used to play to now? Is it a bit better or is it worse? What is it, the difference?
The situation is the same, because the reality is that, just to give you numbers, so I think there are approximately 4.5 million people who play football in this country.
Wow, big.
5,000 are professional. And that number does not vary because the number of teams is what it is. So it's a question of what is the messaging, and I think the messaging from our perspective needs to be the reality. The figures and the facts say that 98% of the players in the academy do not make it. Fact.
Cannot change that.
Fact. So then the question becomes, what do you make out of that experience? Is it that you already, you're going to sell them the dream, which I think is the job of the clubs, or would you sell them the reality, which is the chances are you'll not make it now? What you're going to be doing about that, no? And I think in this country, what is nice is that every single professional players will have at a minimum what they call a BTEC, which is something that would still allow you to go to university if you wanted to. I think that we need to go higher and we need to kind of guarantee people to be able to do their A levels, because frankly, if it wasn't the case in Switzerland, my father would never have allowed me to play football in the first place. Mm-hmm. So I think we're big on pushing for that. But equally now we have created a new degree. Undergrad kind of program that would basically guarantee that someone in England that wants to play football will be able to go from the BTEC to the A levels to the undergrad to the postgraduate without stopping to play a minute football. So it's a new program that we launched, I think, 2 weeks ago. Arsene Wenger, the former Arsenal manager, is the director of that program that we launched, and we're very proud because I'm proud to have 2 degrees, but frankly speaking, when I look back at it, was
tough,
ridiculous.
Takes a lot of commitment and your own time.
You need to be very, very driven and very, very motivated. I remember a situation one day we played a cup game here against Fulham, and you finish at 2 a.m, and then the next day you've got a plane to go and take an exam, and I'm studying on that plane. I'm like,
Impossible.
Another time when I was playing in Germany and I had exams. And also, it's an environment, or used to be an environment, that there was not a lot of understanding for that. You're kind of the weirdo there, it's like, instead of applauding you and supporting you, it was the opposite back in the days.
You're the nerd.
Absolutely. And it's like, I remember me, we were playing in Berlin against Union Berlin. And I had an exam like a following day or whatever. And I was sharing, at the time we were sharing a room with someone. He would not understand I needed to study. So I had to go to the toilet and study on the toilet.
It takes a lot of commitment.
To have my privacy to be able to study. That's not... I don't think that you should test someone's resolve and drive to that extent.
Yes, it's a good balance.
Hopefully, the problem has been over the years is that normally your schedule as a player and the schedule of a university do not match.
No.
Because typically the classes are in the morning, you train in the morning, and in the afternoon, where we have time, there are no classes.
Correct.
And hence, what we have done is create a curriculum that would adapt the schedule of the classes to
a football player.
Exactly.
Which arguably will adapt to any sport, because most of the sport training is done in 100%. The morning. So it should be something that helps.
100%.
Otherwise, it's too restrictive. You are either 100%. Trying and investing 100% into a sport career or zero. Like you don't give it a go.
It's a generation, in my experience, a generation of people who are very smart. I mean, you talk to a guy like Bellingham, if you close your eyes and you don't know that he's 20, you think he's 40. He's smart, he's focused, he understands what is at stake. You talk to a guy like Gundogan, he's a treble winner. He doesn't need, frankly, he can stay at home, count his pounds. Yet he's engaged, he's doing our program to become an executive, which is a 2-year program certified by Portsmouth University. So you end up with an MBA, basically. And the guy is committed, he attends the class, he's participative. You've got a guy like Jordan Henderson connecting from Saudi to study.
Fantastic.
It's a generation of people that are so well-informed, smart, they want to have a say. And I think it's an interesting voice to hear because, they're smart people. They're smart people, they're driven, they've got the vision, and we hope to give them a platform to shine.
And as you said, information and notions are accessible right now. You don't have to study to know concepts. You get summarized, and if you're smart enough, you read it before a meeting, and you know exactly if you have the basic know-how. What will you?
And we live in a different society. I'm sure you see it yourself. When I joined Baker McKenzie, I didn't even ask my salary. It was a no-brainer. Wow, I'm able to. It's an honor for me to be here. Nowadays, not like this. Nowadays, they ask you, what do you stand for? And if your value as a firm does not match what they think, they say no. They've got someone else for less money. So it is a generation of people on and off the field that you need to bring on a journey with you. You need to come. So it's almost a generation where I used to fight to convince my boss. Now it's the other way around.
Which I have noticed in my field as well, and is shocking. But that's why I like the idea of bringing in more sportsmen, sportswomen, everyone that wants to challenge themselves in something different with the discipline of something that is needed right now.
And they understand the value of earning things.
Absolutely.
It's not given. There is no given.
Correct, which is what I like.
And your name, your background does not matter. Here is what do you give on the pitch. And it doesn't matter if you're white, black, gay, straight, wherever you come from, it's result.
Which is as it should be everywhere.
Meritocratic.
Now we have talked about the younger generation. Now the successful players, that obviously there is an expiry date. Age in sports, it is a thing. I guess, I don't know if it's the case, if you're a successful player, your brand can be scaled as an investment. So I guess if you make an investment, economical investment, and you participate as a brand, as yourself, as endorsement of that feed, for example, you buy with a pool of investors a small football team and you bring them up, as we've seen happening in the past, it could be a very good enhancement of your persona. So is it something that you do for the more established? You teach how to brand themselves and how to scale your brand at all?
I think you're making a very smart comment, and I think that's where maybe the US athletes are maybe 4 or 5 steps ahead of the European ones in understanding that it's not the same if an investment fund comes and is investment fund X, or if it is an investment fund which has LeBron James as part of the thing.
Absolutely. Simple.
Because maybe you don't care about football, I don't care about athletics, but people do care. Mm-hmm. And I think once you understand the power of football or sports in certain kind of key investment decisions or in life in general, then you become I think you become more attractive because the reality is that, football really moves passion. And sometimes, ultimately, the reality is that what a fan will offer at a certain level will be the same, really, because you're all smart people. The question becomes, what is the emotional, the personal touch that this specific investment versus this one will give me?
Absolutely.
And that's where I believe, and that's what I'm saying to players. But I said to them, be careful because you live in a sector where your currency expires quickly. So for as long as you play, you have currency. The minute you stop playing, you become one more of the 50,000 who stop playing.
Correct.
And it's a very brutal industry because people forget about you quickly. And I always tell the story. I'm very good friend with a guy who won the Champions League twice in a row for Real Madrid as a starter. So not Mr. No One. He's struggling because he's now missing this acknowledgement from people because things have moved on. And now after him, people have won it 6 times. Because people in the Real Madrid squad currently have won 6 Champions League.
So he's left behind.
And this is what most players really struggle with. It's a brutal industry. It's a brutal industry because, you're top and then you've got the 19 years old, 18 who's there scoring goals. You're out, replaced. So my message to them is the system will use you. It becomes a question as to whether you want to let the system use you or whether you want to use the system to your advantage. Because nowadays, whilst you play, if you go and... First of all, if you're a Man U player, a Chelsea player, I would bet that very few people you contact will say no to you to have a coffee. Irrespective of who they are and what level, they will all want to sit down with you. Just because you play at Man U, you play at Chelsea, or you play at Real Madrid or Atletico Madrid, they'll sit down with you. Then the question is how you use that opportunity, which a lot of smart people don't have. They need to work very hard to deserve that call. You have it. Now, are you ready for that call and to propose something valuable, or you're not ready? And that's where I think the players need to improve. Because you have the access, which, as you know, in your sector is key. Access to deals. That's what you guys are striving for, access to the good deals. Just by being who you are, you have got access. Now, what do you do with that?
I agree. Leverage your brand while it's important. So do it while you can, not when you have to.
Correct.
Type of situation. And so I guess a lot of the superstar players are well advised, but of course the medium tiering successful players will need to be having someone to guide them through, but mostly is prepare for the future ahead with the scaling up the meeting that anyone will take just because you represent a passion. And passion.
And sometimes, you'd be surprised sometimes by the level of loyalty of fans. So I've had situations of, I'm a Sampdoria fan. Mm-hmm. And you'd be very surprised, high-ranked people who end up being Sampdoria fan. You'd be very surprised because the beauty of football, for example, is that people, once you're a fan of a team, you stay forever with that team. And you've got a lot of situations of people, who, this all of a sudden this point in common that we have, that we're both Sampdoria, open doors that you would not expect. Mm-hmm. And in this country especially, people are very close to their team locally. So if you're from Brighton, you're a Brighton fan. Mm. In other countries, you'd be with the big teams here. No.
It's just local.
And you're the David Beckham of that specific city. Mm. And, it opens a lot of doors. Business-wise, contact-wise, networking-wise, and that's something I'm not sure that the players have really capitalized on. In addition to the fact that nowadays, my kids don't follow clubs; they follow players.
That is true.
They follow individual brands, and if Harry Kane was at Spurs and he goes to Bayern, my son switches.
Yes.
And I pay the shirt. So not only him switching, is me making the additional effort of buying that shirt worth £100. Mm-hmm. So there's really a business dynamic behind all this that one should be aware of.
Absolutely, I agree. Going back to the younger generation, I don't know, I generally don't know the scholarship for football players before the age. I don't know when you become a professional. We could become a professional at 18 years old, I guess.
So you've signed your first contract, which is a scholarship, at 16.
16, so younger. So yeah. Is the clubs themselves.
They call them scholars.
Okay, so the clubs themselves offers that, is not university.
It's a salary that they call scholarship, but it's not the concept that you would understand a scholarship in the sense of access to certain universities that would be expensive, but thanks to scholarship you're able to access them. because technically they are getting ready for that job. Hence why they're called scholars.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. Would be nice to have a more traditional side of scholarships through university, as you're actually doing, having the courses post training, but from any type of curriculums or academic subject.
So what you have more and more is American universities trying to attract talent like this. So now your company would just do that for a living. They would basically do like a trial day where talented people would just come and they would give you a grant to go and study in whatever. I've had someone doing that with tennis, who went to Harvard through a scholarship. And football is now starting to kind of explore that thing there, especially in the US.
I guess the main problem is the age, that you are in your prime, the beginning of the period, while you are not that commitment. There is a right balance in terms of being at your best for the job, which is football player, and studying. So yeah, that's why we need something in the middle.
I think you're right. I think that was one of the things that I realized when I joined Baker. So, in my ideal world, I thought I'm going to play football until I'm 35, 39, whatever, as long as it lasts. And then I'm going to stop that and then start another successful career in law. And when I stopped playing, I was 25 and I went to that firm and I realized that my boss was 32. And I was like, so he's 32, making a very good living, not for 10 years as me, for the foreseeable future. And even when he left, he still got credit for the client that he brought. So I said, wow, my ideal world ain't gonna work. I cannot play until 35 and then be successful in law. I'll need to make a choice here. And that's the choice I made. But you're right, I think the other problem that you have is that there's not an alignment in terms of the career of a player and the career of a normal person. Because at 35, if you're good, you're already like very highly ranked in investment banking, in law firms, whereas in football, you're already old. You're old and you're no longer ready to provide anything to the industry. So there's a mismatch a little bit in terms of that. You're right.
That's why the parallel careers, almost the work experience, and at least not giving up the opportunity of develop after, and not starting from 0 at 35, starting from 25%. And develop from there, and I'm sure with the discipline, with the methodology which applies to sport, speeds up the curve, and you
100%.
make up in 5 years a 10 years career of a normal grad product.
I think you're absolutely right. I think it's a very smart approach. I think it would be a mutually beneficial experience for both.
Absolutely.
For the people who take them as an intern and for the intern themselves. And you're right. I think a lot of time in the normal life, what you need, so the experience gives you the skills that you as a player already have. Handling pressure, making decision calls under pressure, handling different level of expectation. That's something that you already have. What you don't have is the actual technical knowledge, which is the easiest part.
It's accessible.
It's accessible. The other one is more difficult, to lead a team, to be a leader. I always say to players, you need to realize that there are stuff that people go to Harvard to learn, and you have that intuitively.
Absolutely. And
people pay 30K to do a course about leadership, and that's what you've done for 10 years.
The question is maybe how much time does a player have which could spare for work experience, studying? What is the amount of hours per day, do you think? Because obviously there must be some, as you said, the stress. You are worth as much as your last game, and so you need to digest what's gone wrong. So a lot of spare time has to be employed into develop your skills. And so it's not just the amount of hours available. It's about how much really do you think can be invested from a football player per day in something that is not family or digesting the.
It's a fair question. I think football has evolved. So when I used to play, the reality is that it was a 2 or 3 hour commitment per day in terms of what you train, and that was basically it. It was almost a race to see who leaves the training ground first.
Yes,
that was the reality, and probably has contributed to sometimes the negative reputation that players had in terms of professional, but only on paper. Nowadays, that's changed a lot. So nowadays, they really have like a proper work in the sense of getting there at 8, doing all the work they need to do before training, the preparation, whatever, then training, then the post-training. So typically, they'll be busy from 8 to 3, sometimes 3:30. And then it is true that your laptop is your body in this case. This is your instrument of work. So you need to have time to recover and look after your body. So, but I always say that, even if you're there until 3:30, imagine that you do another 2 hours of rest just to recover. By 5:30, you've got time. So how much do you have per day? I think easily 2-3 hours, depending on the day, to do something. You've got also a few and also it depends on the level you play. So obviously, a player that plays in the top division and has kind of international, kind of national team, as well as a European competition commitment is maybe a bit more tricky because of the traveling, etc. But you do have, so it depends on whether it is a question of studying or a question of working. I say to them, in terms of studying, you've got time.
I agree.
If you want to tell anyone else that it's not true, tell it, but you don't trick me.
Correct.
Because even when you play, against Atletico Madrid, in Madrid, from the time you have breakfast to the time you go to game, you do nothing. Because I've been with you.
You did it.
I know for a fact. I wasn't that good, but I was with you, and you did nothing. You have time. I understand you sometimes. Imagine that you say, okay, the afternoon you focus on my game, fine. The morning, you've got time. Now, do you have time to actually commit to work? I think if you don't have that crazy schedule, maybe you can use your days off. I was doing that, so I was using my Wednesday off. I would go to a law firm and try to learn. So it's feasible. It's a commitment, but equally the way I see it is a way to kind of also get your head off the ball and off the pitch and find a balance in your life. Otherwise, it becomes obsessive.
Absolutely.
Remember that someone to reach that level, there's a part of them who is obsessive. You can only get to that level if you're obsessive about what you do, the detail, and sometimes it's too much. So having a different thing that keeps your head busy is good.
We did this with the rowers. They had 3 hours per day of free mental, where usually they want something that distract them to thinking about the sport. So give tasks which can be done within 3 hours.
It's feasible.
Email back the results and is experience learning and doing something useful for the firm itself, I think works and can be productive and can teach you a lot and beneficial for corporates and from players in this case.
I think you're right. And I think it goes both ways. So, pressurized environment, that's what I do for a living. For some time when I went into club management, because I was the CEO of a club in Spain for 4 years after Baker, and sometimes, you go to those business schools and they teach you about the 5-year business plan. And then post-COVID, a lot of people that done those kind of fancy schools were like, I don't know how to... Football is that. Relegated, promoted, Europe. No, so you're going to Manchester, but how this agility of adapting to circumstance, of how to motivate people, that's what we do for a living. And a lot of time in a football club, you have blue collars and white collars. It's the same. So what made this experience as a CEO of a club unbelievable was that on a Monday morning at 8, I'll be talking to the CFO in a way, with words and with a body language that I would never use at 11 with the players.
Of course.
I would not hug and kiss my CFO. Yes, I would hug and kiss my players.
Absolutely.
So this ability to adapt to blue collar, it's the same in normal companies, exactly the same. And you don't motivate a high performer the same than a soldier.
Absolutely. Yes.
Because typically a high performer is selfish, it's about himself or herself. So you don't tell him or her, do it for us. They don't care. The question is, how can we as a collective make you better and win more titles? But the same reasoning that applies to the pitch applies to investment bank or applies to...
It's the same here.
Exactly
the same. You have the producer that's supposed to be a producer, and you have
exactly
the support, and this is applicable for any given job. And
so a lot of tricks that we use in the dressing room is applicable today. So you can also learn a lot from them.
You can a lot.
I'm
sure.
It goes both ways, I think.
I agree. Well, I think with this... We have a consumer the available time. It was very interesting. I would love to follow up offline and in the next follow-up episode. So thank you very much for taking the time. And
my pleasure.
I look forward to speak with you again.
Thank you.